Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Good morning, Kyle.
Good morning.
Good morning. Just a couple housekeeping things. I just wanted to make sure we start on time. So it's 8:03 right now. So hopefully everyone just enjoyed that little intro. I don't want to cut everyone else off here. That's you, Ernest, coming up there. Look at the other way. There you are. There you go. On your side. Really excited. Just a couple of housekeeping items. So if everyone could just, I'll introduce myself in a second. I'll introduce Ernest in a second. If everyone could just stay on mute until we maybe come to you, we'll have an opportunity to ask some questions. Wanted just to point out where the chat room is. So on the bottom of your screen, you may have to move your cursor around. If you're not familiarized with Zoom, you'll be able to move your cursor around and just hit that chat. That's where we'll probably ask you to ask some questions and maybe respond to everyone, stuff like that. We'll be able to speak there. And then Catherine Monroe, who works with our team as well, she will be monitoring that chat just in case Ernest and I don't get a chance to look down there. We're going to be able to monitor that and go from there. And like I said, we really want to kick off this week to be something that's great, something that energizes everyone. And the conversation that Ernest is about to partake with us is going to be epic. Raising the standards there on your Ernest. It's going to be epic, so we want to be able to get that information across. The structure of today's meeting is going to really be about having a conversation around mindset. That Ernest is going to lead us through. We want to be able to be clear with that topic. So there's going to be some ideas, some opportunities for clarity, as well as in the middle of that, we're going to talk about what kind of mindset you have to wrap your head around the mindset, right? So that sounds like it's clear as mud, but we'll definitely start off there. And then at the last part is, something that my business partner, Christopher, who's going to be coming up. When is he coming up? Right there. Let me go the other way. There he is. He's going to be coming up on April the 27th, and we're going to be kind of talking about motivational mapping there. But one thing he often says is, what is the imperfect inspired actions that we can take, right? It's that one thing that we can do in the week that will help us focus and get more of the results that we're looking for in mindset. That is going to be what we want to be able to do. So those are the three things we want to promise you. Ernest and I will engage in a conversation within about 15 minutes or so, for about 15 minutes or so, and then we want to be able to open it up and ask you guys some questions, or if you guys have some questions for us, we'll answer some of those and go from there. Be patient with us. It's the first time kicking this off. It's our response to be helpful, and we hope we are able to do that for people in life and leadership and in business. And so we want to be able to kind of do that and then go from there. I'll give you more information at the end as far as how to reach out to Ernest, myself, as well as get a recording or a copy of this recording that we will send that link out a little bit later on that Catherine will help us maneuver. Poor Catherine, she's like, oh my God, I don't want to mess this up. You won't, you won't. All right, let's get right into it. Let me just start off by introducing myself. My name is Kyle Kalloo, business coach with Change My Business Coaching, really focused in life, leadership, and business. Like I said, you'll read more about me or later on, but I really want to kind of focus on Ernest right now, who's my co-host for this meeting, and go from there. So Ernest, why don't you introduce yourself to these fine folks?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This is such a great idea. We were chatting while you were in hair and makeup of how great of a way this is to start off a day and start off a week. In fact, I did a video today on the leadership challenge that I'm running about starting your day off with a win. So this is fantastic, and welcome everybody as well. Thank you so much for coming here together. So my name is Ernest Barbaric, and I'm an executive coach. I have a background of about 15 to 18 years in digital strategy, education, entrepreneurship. I've ran a few different businesses, and I built a conference. I did a number of different things, and I think the cherry on top was doing a TEDx talk on digital addiction in 2017. So what I do right now is I specialize in helping leaders and entrepreneurs navigate uncertainty, lead with authenticity, and do meaningful work. Since 2013, I've interviewed over 130 executives, leaders, thought leaders, and authors on what is meaningful work. So that I have a body of research there. But lately, my focus has been on exploring the topic of mindset. I've kind of, the journey that I've taken through my career has been from marketing, then to strategy, then to understanding that you can have a great strategy, but if you don't have a great team, that things aren't going to work out. You can't have a great team without great leadership. And then great leadership comes down to the mindset that you bring to the table. So it's been a very interesting journey backwards, I guess, if you will, to this point now. And so I'm one of the things that I'm that's on my project list for this year, hopefully, is to start working to finish a book on mindset. I started laying it out, and so I want to get a few more interviews in there and some more really robust research before writing.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that, Ernest, and especially congratulations on the book that is coming. And now that you put it out there to the public, that is public accountability. If
Never done that.
If we don't see a book by the end of this year, we'll know to be able to kind of follow up on that. So what's the fascination with mindset? Like, what is it? Like, if you could say one thing about mindset, because I know it's quite fast, but what is one thing? What should people be focusing on when we hear that word mindset?
Like you said, there are a lot of different elements to it. When I was exploring it, at this point in time, there are 17 different topics of area of interest that kind of break down different parts of the mindset. But I think the way that I've come to look at it, and again, I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm using a lot of research that I've used in my work as well as for myself. I look at it like an operating system, and there are many different elements and layers to it. And it governs how we act in whatever environment we're in, and it's responsible for the results and the outcomes that we're able to create in wherever we are. And the great thing about it is that once you have awareness of that ability, you also have the ability to upgrade it or change it at any time. And as a result of that, you're able to change the results and the outcomes that you're able to create. So operating system is the way that I look at it. And again, having the ability to upgrade it is one of the simpler ways that I can use to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, I really like that, the operating system, like something is behind. You know, one thing I learned many moons ago, was quite young, is what Dr. Stephen Covey talks about, a paradigm, right? It's almost like a map, right? It's just this map in your head that, you know, sometimes it doesn't matter how positive or negative, if you have the wrong map, right, you're not going to get the results that you want to get, right? Or the place you want to go, right? And so from that mindset piece of it, the research that you've done and the conversations you've had with these folks, you know, is there anything that's common, like to get more results? Or
I think the one thing that's always stuck out to me is that you have the ability to make a decision every moment of every day how you're going to show up. And then what happens is that once you make enough of those decisions, it can shape who you are. So for example, you know, this morning, I'm just using myself as an example. It would have been really easy to not get up and record a video. I recorded a video prior to this. It would have been really easy to not do that. But then I'm thinking, like, what kind of person does that make me? And so this all comes in the shaping of a mindset that you want to adopt for yourself. And so I think there's a really great book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And in it, he says, every action you take is a vote for the type of person that you want to become. And I think that's a really key integral part of where habits and mindset meet.
Oh my goodness. I mean, there's how many times do we have? We only have like 30 minutes, right? There's so much I want to do with this. And I think a lot of people are going to have some questions about that.
Sure.
But before we get right into that, folks, I mean, there's so many things that's happening right now, Ernest, that I think people are just confused and is just uncertain, fear, and all those different things. And so if you could zone into one thing, and while, you know, we're talking about this, guys, if you want to just put some comments in the chat room, just let us know, you know, what city are you in? I mean, is everyone from Canada or not? Let us know what city you're in and what industry you're in, because I think that would be good information to also hear, you know, where you guys are at. So please leave that in the chat so everyone could kind of see it. But Ernest, to come back to it a little bit around, because some things are habitual, but with everything that's going on right now, you know, if you had to get really clear for people to say, listen, this is the mindset in current state that we need to kind of focus in on, how can you help? How can you help them move through this pandemic, this craziness that's happening?
So, I mean, I have a lot of different thoughts on this. So let me see if I can kind of boil it down to a couple of key elements. So the first one is that you are at decision of how you're going to show up, regardless of what situation you're in. So that's one. So you can choose to be certain, you can choose to be decisive, you can choose to be kind and nice to people, you can choose to be healthy, you can choose to go for a run first thing in the morning, or whatever that might be for your journal, help, or you can choose to be, or you can let yourself be fearful, you can let yourself be impacted by the environment. There's a fantastic book that I read 2 years ago now. I started reading it many, many years ago, and I read only the first half, and I just couldn't finish it because it was so heavy. It's by Viktor Frankl, and it is, and I'm just blanking on a name right now. So Viktor, I'll just look it up right now. And I think a lot of people are going to know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, while you're looking that up, I see there's so many folks here all over the place. This is brilliant. This is brilliant. Yeah, lots of folks from Calgary, a few from Toronto, a couple from the UK, very different backgrounds as well, Ernest. So
I'm sorry, I don't know how I blanked out about this, but it's called Man's Search for Meaning. And for those of you that have read it, it's a book. So Dr. Viktor Frankl is a Holocaust survivor, and he talks about what it was like to be in a concentration camp. So the first half of the book is the experience of being in a concentration camp, and the second half of the book is the basis for this therapy that he developed. It's called logotherapy, and it talks about this idea of an internal locus of control. So when you are in a concentration camp, all your choices removed. Your environment is such that people were tortured, people were killed, friends were separated, all kinds of atrocious and awful things happened to so many people. And he would observe what was happening, and then he looked at what is it that kept people alive. And it was that having that sense of internal locus of control. So if you strip everything away, and you can see this in Stoicism and Stoic philosophy as well, you still have the ability to choose how you're going to show up and how you're going to allow your mind to operate. I think that's the key element when it comes to the mindset. So regardless of what situation right now, if you're operating a business in an environment right now where everything is shut down, if you are not an essential business like Yvonne is with supplying toilet paper to everybody. I try to get some, but apparently you can't get some if you don't have an account with her. So we'll see. We'll negotiate on that. But
we know a person.
We know a person. But the idea behind it is that you can still choose how you show up. You can still operate out of a place of certainty. One of the things that leaders do, extraordinary leaders do really, really well, is even though they themselves might feel like we're in an uncertain place, they can create certainty for their teams and for their organizations by choosing to be certain. If you wanted a hack of how you can actually do that, you can think about what a certain person would do at this time and then do that thing. So that's a hack that's very, very easy. Sometimes one of the things that we do in executive coaching sessions is and I've had an opportunity to work with a lot of different entrepreneurs and executives where they themselves behind the veneer, they are feeling uncertainty and they have to step into this other role of being an extraordinary leader. So they literally put on a mask, a suit of armor, or an alter ego, or whatever that is, to be that for their people. And then they can step out of it. But the more you step into that alter ego, the more it becomes the way you operate, and it shapes your mindset.
Because then doesn't that lead into the actions, right? Which is kind of what you just did, right? The third part of this is, what actions, right? What's that imperfect inspired action that someone can? And so what I heard from you there is stepping into that, like, that alter ego, what would this person do? And sometimes we even hear that, right? Is where you're like, what would my mom do? Like, what would my dad do? What would this Susie Bell do, right? All these different things. It's just being able to, when you think of it, is being able to set that your mind for them to receive those actions that actually takes place, if that makes sense, right?
I mean, that's a definite shortcut.
So one of the things, while I open this up to maybe get some questions from some folks, if you have a specific question that you want to ask us, please put it in the chat. We'll be able to jump to maybe a few of those questions while we talk a little bit more on the actions, like what actions could someone be taking this week as they look at this week? Maybe one of the questions, who could they step into? Who do they have to model? Sometimes we use that term a lot in coaching, like what type of modeling do you want to be able to associate? So if you guys could send just type us in the chat there some of your questions, and we'll be able to take a quick peek at it. Catherine will help us to kind of navigate some of those questions. And then if you're okay with it, we'd love to kind of get you on and ask your question. If not, we will just read it out and be able to answer it. Ernest, can you talk a little bit about, just for this week, with everything that's going on, what are some additional hacks you mentioned that people can do, or what actions? Because sometimes, the behavior is what is going to lead us even closer to get into the results that we wanted, right?
So there are a few different ways to enter, and there are a few different ways how your mindset influences your actions, and how your actions can influence your mindset. It goes both ways. Everything in life and work and leadership is built through action. And I'm just going to call this out really quickly, because this is something that I've noticed in my coaching clients. So I tend to work with high achievers and high performers quite a bit. In fact, I had a call with someone on Saturday that got into this place of, I want to help, I want to change, I want to make certain things. And they would spin up this entire grand scenario of all the different moving pieces and all the different things to have it be perfect. When you get to that place of, this is a grand design, this is the business that I want to have, this is the plan idea, this is the team I want to build, or this is how I want to change things, it becomes too big, then most of those people don't take the small action that's necessary to start building. So a good way to think about it is, you can have a great big dream. You can have an idea of what you want to achieve, objectives that you want to get to, but what is one tiny little step that you can take today towards that? If you take one tiny little step every day of the week, you start making progress. Progress is the better measure of success than building this grand big thing. So, I mean, the question comes down to, what's one tiny little step that you can take that will help you feel like you're making progress? And I'll give you something very specific. This is kind of like the secret sauce that I've been testing out for a little while, that some people might really enjoy. And it's also kind of embarrassing, so please give me
We
some
like
leeway
that. We
here.
call that vulnerability.
Okay, so when did I start it? I started this in February. I was in a place of trying to figure out what am I building. I have a certain vision that I wanted to create. And so one of the things that was messing with my mindset was that it was never big enough, or the things that we're doing weren't great enough, big enough, weren't helping enough people, not impactful enough. So one of the things that I started doing, and I thought about it in this way: okay, what if I started stacking up small wins? And so I started keeping this journal. I call it the 2020 wins. And in it, I write down, like, there's a lot here. I write down every day some wins that I've had in the day. And it could be as simple, this is taking those small steps. It could be as simple as, I got up at 7 o'clock this morning. I took 5 seconds of a cold shower this morning. I was nice to my kid this morning. I made breakfast for everybody this morning. I went for a run this morning. It could be like literally any number of things. I sent an email in a nice way. I reached out to a prospect. I knew that I had to do layoffs, but I did them in a way that I'm proud of. And so the second question that comes out of something like this is, what wins in the morning? What wins do I want to be able to write down? And that puts you in a place of action. So it's a really interesting hack that's worked really well for me. It's worked really well in my mastermind group, and I'm just now starting to roll it out to some clients as well. That was a really long answer to a short question.
That's awesome. That's a brilliant way to put it. If I could share, for me, the win has always been, I've been making my bed since I've been 8 years old. And no matter how tired I am, no matter how late I am, or whatever that day is, I cannot leave the house without making my bed. And so for me, it's just being able to make your bed is a huge win, right? Because you're like, well, why bother? My brother often say, well, why bother? You're just gonna go back into it anyway, right? But there's something about creating that habitual thing around, I'm making my bed, right? Before I do anything else, I have to get up and make your bed. So I love that you shared that example of just saying, why don't we just categorize and just catalog your wins? Right? Because a lot of times it's so easy for us, don't you think, the mindset of going back to that negativity, or just, oh, I can't do it. It has to be bigger. It has to be grand.
And that's exactly the thing, because everybody that's on this call, I'm guessing is a professional of some kind. You've had some amazing things that you've done in your lives. And when a situation like this hits, you forget all of that stuff. The fact is, I'm going to guess that all of you have overcome some incredibly difficult things at some point in your life. And what happens with the mindset is that we forget those things. This, or something like this, reminds you of the amazing work that you're doing currently. It gives you a forward lens into what do I want to be able to write down at the end of the day. And it also it gives you the ability to reflect. So one of the other things that we'll sometimes do as a family is we'll reflect at the end of the week on Sunday and write down 3 wins for the week.
Perfect.
And I mean, this is mixing work and family and everything else together.
I love it, because isn't it the same, right? When you look at it, you one person, right? There's an interesting question here that I want to jump to before we wrap up here in our meeting. The question comes from Jacqueline Corey here. Jacqueline, do you want to unmute and just ask your question? Okay, maybe not. Do you see the question there, Ernest? Just what do you suggest to an employee struggling to show up at a job while also trying to lead up to not burn out?
Employee struggling to show up at a job. So, I mean, if we were in a coaching session, I would ask you, is this a pattern? We would look for what does struggling to show up mean, and then lead up is what is it that makes you feel like you have to do that. So there's a few different kind of elements that I would want to explore with before solutioning. So let me see here.
While you think about that, Ernest, one thing that comes to mind for me when an employee is struggling is to all understand, like, if you think of mindset and results all sometimes on a continuum, right? The results is on one end and the mindset, is on the other end. And sometimes it's about how do I set my mind up, right? What is the thought? And then that leads to those feelings. What are those feelings that drives the behaviors, and what behaviors gets the consequence of the results we're looking at, right? And so if the struggle is this, then what is it behind that struggle? What is it that she's trying to maybe get to? First needs to be kind of identify, and what mindset will support that desired result. That's what comes to mind for me when I think about someone who's struggling on certain things.
Yeah, I mean, without a lot more clarity, it would be difficult to make a suggestion. So I would be really curious to dig into it some more. If we were to use, the hack from a little bit earlier, it would be to, what would a confident person do in this case, and then come at it from that place. So is there an alter ego that you can create, that you can operate from? The other thing that I'll mention here, and this is just reading through. Reading between the lines, is, are you trying to do too much? So are you in this space of trying to impress, or trying to present a version, I guess, of yourself that you think other people want to see? So there's a couple of other things that I would be really curious to explore there.
Great. And with that exploration, as we wrap up, guys, thank you so much for your participation. I love 30-minute meetings. I don't know about you, but I love 30-minute meetings where it's so productive, because you get everything in and people just feel they need to just keep going. And there's no long drawn out, oh my God, when is this meeting going to end, right? So, and that's the whole idea. It's just bite size. I know we're not going to get to everything. I know you're welcome, Jacqueline. She mentioned that she couldn't figure out the mic, so no problems out that she didn't want to speak. But that's the whole idea. So, how can people, before I just give the final thoughts here, how can people reach out to you, Ernest? Like, if they wanted to connect with you, what does that look like? What's some of your info for people to stay connected?
Yeah, for sure. So the easiest way, there are a couple easy ways to connect with me. So one is to go to ernestbarbaric.com, or if you look up my name, I'm pretty easy to find. So basically I created this COVID-19 response section on my website, which you can go to and you can see what's available to you. I'm also booking I opened up strategy session spots, which are essentially really short, concise coaching calls in April to help leaders and entrepreneurs handle uncertainty. So those are absolutely free, confidential and private. You can find out some more details there. And you can also find me on LinkedIn, we're searching under Ernest Barbaric as well. So right now is day 15 of a 30-day leadership video challenge that I've started producing 2 weeks ago. And it's basically a micro coaching series, which has a tiny little story or a tiny little action that you can take to keep you in the right mindset.
That's awesome. Thank you, Ernest, so much for that. Catherine has posted up some of her information there as well, just to contact you and go from there. My information, excuse me, is also there. And, one thing I would ask from everyone is, let us know how this was, so go to our social medias, use the hashtag Monday Mindset Meeting, so that way we can see what everyone is writing and be able to kind of see that information. And if you're not connected with us on LinkedIn, please do that, reach out to us. Again, share with us your feedback. Let me know if you have great things to say about it. Please send me a message. If you don't, send Ernest a message. He'll be able to figure it out. No, in all honesty, we're really open. We're learning here, so we appreciate your patience with that as well. By the end of today, we will have this recording upload on our YouTube, so you want to go to our YouTube channel. Again, all that information is in the chat room, so you want to be able to grab that. And then that way you can see it. And if there's someone you want to be able to share that with, please do that. Next week, we do have Moji Ajeli, who's going to co-host with me, and she's the executive director for BNI South Alberta. And we're going to really talk about networking, because while these things are happening too, is do people network or don't they network, right? And what is the best way to do that without coming across like you're selling? So that's really the main thing. Thank you guys all so much. And like I said, we really appreciate your feedback. Ernest, thank you to showing up and actually sharing with us the mindset piece of it. I think we're so fortunate for that. And, we wish you well on your book as well to make sure that goes well. And maybe if based on some of the information, you could come back and share with us how well you're doing with the book, or maybe there's other information. So thank you guys so much. We'll see you guys all again next week. Take care.